I've come across this same problem over and over again when I sit down to write a scene where the characters enjoys supper. And that is, what are they eating? If I have this problem, I bet that many of you will have the same experience. So in today's video, we will explore food in the Middle Ages, and I must say that a lot of misconceptions has sneaked into our understanding of this very topic. You will see what I mean in just a second. Let's get into it. Hi guys, my name is Jesper and welcome to the Fane of Fantasy. This channel is all about giving you inspiration to master your craft and create fantasy that will truly immerse your audience. Research into medieval food was, until the 1980s, much neglected, and many historians got it so wrong that there is still a popular view of the Middle Ages being a primitive and barbaric era. You might have heard of how the heavy use of spices was in fact used to disguise the flavor of spoiled meat. Honestly, I found no historical facts to actually back that up. So unless one of you watching is an expert in this area, then I will conclude that it's in fact not true. While preservation techniques at the time might seem crude compared to modern standards, they were perfectly adequate. I'm not sure the conclusion here is that they lived off a good balanced diet either, but let's explore what they in fact did eat so that you can use it as inspiration for your own fantasy settings. And while we cover today's topic, don't forget that you can of course invent your own type of food for the cultures in your setting if you have reason to do so. I guess it's also worth pointing out that medieval society was highly divided in social hierarchies, and here food was an important marker of one's status. And in a moment we'll look at the difference in diet for the different classes, but first it's worth pointing out that in Europe there were typically 2 meals a day, so dinner at midday and then a lighter supper in the evening. Smaller intermediate meals were common, but became a matter of social status really, so as those who did not have to perform manual labor could go without them. For practical reasons, breakfast was still eaten by working men and was tolerated for young children, women, and the elderly and the sick. Alright, so in the upper class or the nobility, the diet was extensive, although only small portions were taken. During the Crusades, a change in culture ensued with an interest in the more elegant matters. We discovered spices. Not to hide the fact that the meat were spoiled, because that's not the reason, it was just more exotic. So expensive spices such as cinnamon, ginger, saffron and so forth were all consumed by the wealthy classes. They would eat a vast variety of meats and game such as beef, pork, goat, lamb, rabbit and much more. When it came to fish, these could be both fresh and saltwater fish, salmon, herring, eel or trout, just to name a few. It also extended to shellfish like crab, oysters and mussels. And not to forget cheese and fruits, but when it came to vegetables, that would be more limited. Compared to this, we have the lower classes of being the peasants, of course. Here they were mostly eating homegrown foods without the use of spices, which they could, well, not afford, of course. And in addition, only lords and nobles were allowed to hunt deer, boar and rabbits. So therefore, They would have to eat rye bread, stew, and dairy products such as milk and cheese. For meat, these guys would enjoy beef, pork, and lamb, while fish was only available to those who actually had access to rivers or the sea. Homegrown vegetables and fruit was of course an option, and so was nuts and honey. Next up is drinking, and again here I think most have a stereotypical view of what they would drink in the Middle Ages. But before going there, I would appreciate it if you could check out Patreon. There is a link in the description field below, so check it out. For as little as $1 a month or a half-eaten hamburger, you'll get into the reward program. When it comes to drinking, the matter of the fact is that water was often unclean and of low prestige value, so alcohol became in part a necessity and also a social choice. The poor drank ale, meat, and cider, and the rich were able to drink many different sorts of wine. Actually, alcoholic beverages were seen as more nutritious and beneficial to digestion than water. For instance, the consumption of wine was believed to aid digestion, generate good blood, and brighten the mood. I wonder why that last one is so. However, when we venture into the northernmost regions of Europe, where I'm from, I talked about the Vikings in some other videos. I've added the link to one of them on the screen here. But here in the north, grapes were not cultivated, so those who could afford it drank imported wine, but even for nobility it was common to drink beer or ale. Beer was consumed on a daily basis, and in the early Middle Ages it was primarily brewed in monasteries and on a smaller scale in individual households. By the High Middle Ages, breweries in the medieval towns of northern Germany began to take over production. However, under heavy influence from Arab and Mediterranean cultures on medieval science, beer was often heavily disfavored. For most medieval Europeans, it was a humble brew compared with common southern drinks and cooking ingredients such as wine, lemons and olive oil. Even exotic products like camel's milk and gazelle meat generally received more positive attention, so to speak. Beer was just an acceptable alternative and was assigned various negative qualities. On the topic of medieval science, it had a considerable influence on what was considered healthy and nutritious among the upper classes. Human digestion was considered to be a process similar to that of cooking. Yeah, I know. Essentially, the processing of food in the stomach was seen as a continuation of the preparation initiated by the cook in the kitchen. So, in order for the food to be properly cooked and for the nutrients to properly be absorbed in the body, it was important that the stomach was filled in an appropriate manner. Easily digestible foods would be consumed first, followed by gradually heavier dishes. If you did this the other way around, it was believed that the heavier food would sink to the bottom of the stomach and thus block the digestion duct, so that food would digest very slowly and cause putrefaction of the body, basically, I guess. Even though meat was highly valued by all in 13th century England, it contributed only slightly to the portion of calories consumed by a worker's diet. But after the Black Death and by the 15th century, we do see an upswing with meat making up like 20% of the daily calorie intake. Because of the Black Death, the population of the Middle Ages dropped dramatically. The Black Death claimed a third of the world's population and almost 200 million people died. So as a result, more food was available and even the poor were able to eat meat. We cannot forget about desserts now, can we? I usually do not treat my characters that nicely, but perhaps it can come in handy from time to time, I don't know, so let's cover it anyway. By the late Middle Ages, desserts would, apart from cheese and wine, also include fresh fruit covered in sugar, honey or syrup. German-speaking areas had a particular fondness for fried pastries and dough with various sweet fillings. Marzipan in many forms was well known in Italy and southern France by the 1340s and is assumed to be of Arab origin. In northern France, a wide assortment of waffles was eaten with cheese, and from the south, the Arabs also brought the art of ice cream. So as you can see, your options are quite plentiful when it comes to desserts, so feel free to experiment. I think I would like to turn the question of the week completely towards fantasy though, so here goes. I would like to know what kind of special foods you have included in your fantasy setting. Past or present, doesn't matter. Just drop a line in the comment section below, and that way we can create a depository of inspiration for one another. I'll keep this one short this time around, as my time is still being consumed by editing book 3 of the Keystone Bone trilogy. I'm making progress, but a lot of work yet to go. In the meantime, you can grab a free behind the scenes look. You know, just click the channel banner where it reads exclusive download. Go on. If this is your first time here, make sure to subscribe and learn to master the craft of creating immersing fantasy worlds, settings, and characters. Stay safe out there and see you next Monday.